Come get your victory at the table. Let's talk. Let's talk. Come get your victory at the table. Let's talk. Let's talk.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on whatever time you have decided to tune in with us. We would like to welcome you to another episode of Victory at the Table Talk, where we have down-to-earth conversations about various topics to assist with your walk with Christ. Here at the table, you can get the victory, but you can also get a taste of Victory Apostolic Church right here in Matteson, Illinois, where we are building victorious Christ-like lives. Enjoy this episode.
Praise the Lord and welcome to another Victory at the Table Talk. I am Evangelist Stephanie Efford, and we are here today to have another health and wellness podcast. The subject today will be choose to lose and change the narrative, the health narrative, and that is letting go of the stigma placed on obesity. Okay, this is part one of a two-part series, and I have three guests with me today. Our first guest is our youngest millennial, and that's Amber Whitted. Everyone knows Amber. She's an administrative assistant at a tech company, as well as an author. We know that as well. We know that she does singing, spoken word, and she does instruments of praise dance here at Victory, and she's a member of the Vessels of Victory Choir. So let's give her a big hand clap. Our next guest is Davita White. We should all know Davita. She is the announcer. We've seen her around church. I know the women know her. But in her professional life, she's an executive administrative coordinator for the ComEd South Region, director of distribution operations. Amen. and then she's also the Victory Women's Ministry director of events. And she also works with Spiritual Care Ministries on Sunday morning as our announcer. She has taken the place of Brenda Bernardo. Praise God. And then not last but not least is Pastor Martin Stratton, which we could just call him Marty. And he is a licensed real estate broker. He's the POM leader for Christian Education Ministries and also Spiritual Transformation Ministries, and oversees the facility operations here at Victory. Praise the Lord. So Amen. Give everyone a hand clap for joining today. We are about to get down with this discussion, and I just want my guests and myself to be transparent about this discussion because we can't hide under the table and talk about this subject, which is about obesity. Yeah. All right. Let's talk about what stigma is first. Stigma is a disapproval or discrimination based on social standards that we step away from and we evaluate a thing or a person about. So there is a stigma associated with obesity. Yeah. Okay. It happens even with the young children, with adults. Okay. And we're going to get into that a little bit more. And the reason we're talking about it, because sometimes for ourselves, we have to get away from worrying about stigma. Okay. Yeah. We can't worry about what people say about us because at the end of the day, we have to live with ourselves. Okay. So each one of you were chosen and selected by me based on the fact that I was observing you. Oh, Marty. I was observing you, and I approached both of these two young ladies. Just talking to them, I'm like, I noticed you lost some weight. And that's how the discussion started. Now, with Marty, our hands-on he was talking to me about what he was doing. But you two, I just noticed it and was like, wow. So here we are. We're going to start talking about it. I do a lot of research for health and wellness on a regular basis. I get articles that come through email. I get articles that are mailed to me. So today I did a little research on the stigma about weight. There was a study performed in the late 1950s with some children. They were 10 and 11 years old. They put 6 images of children before them. They had to rank those children in order of most like and most dislike. One child was normal weight. Another child was obese. Another child was in a wheelchair. One had crutches. One had a leg brace, and the other had a missing hand. So what they did, and one had a facial disfigurement. So you would think that the ones with the most problem, maybe the facial disfigurement, would really bother them the most. The one that they put at the bottom of the totem pole, which was what? Probably the one that was obese, and it was the one that was obese. That bothered them more than anything else. Yeah. Now I thought about this and I put it in a frame of if they had 2 obese children, one was not black and the other one was black. Okay.
You already know which one would have been on the
yes.
bottom. Right.
So we know for a fact that little black child would have been at the bottom of the totem pole. So I do know that this study was done with different ethnics. Okay, we know that, but I'm just saying, if you had 2 obese people in this study, you would have seen a different result. So it just goes to show you the stigmatism that starts at a younger age with our children when it comes to obesity. Now, some of the ways that's harmful that we deal with obesity is bullying for our children and adults. Yeah. And now that there's social media, even though it really helps us in one hand, it hurts us in the other hand. Because unfortunately, our children especially, they fall prey to social media bullying. And unfortunately, we've had children commit suicide over being bullying. And the more you're teased about your weight, the more you withdraw, the more you may become violent, the more you eat. The more you eat. So, and that happens with adults as well. So we have to understand that when it comes to the stigma, we play a role, not only people that are obese, people that are not obese, and even in the health profession. I did some study on that and found that our doctors don't really deal with us well with obesity.
I've noticed that.
Yeah. They don't talk to us about our obesity, but they put it in your chart. Right. I will tell you that. I found that out twice. So I'm like, they didn't talk to me about that. So and I think it's on us. We have to take accountability for where we are in our health and talk to our doctors and say, I know I'm overweight. What can you do to help me? Back in the day, they used to refer you to a nutritionist. I don't know if any of you, I've been referred to one once.
I have not.
I have, and they didn't do anything for me, but I went, and they're supposed to help you, but they're not. They just put that little note in the chart and tiptoe through the tulips. You can't tiptoe through the tulips about obesity because it leads to disease. So what we're going to do now, we're going to have a discussion so everybody knows what stigma is. We know it's harmful. We know that affects children as well as adults. And another study was done before we do that, and I'll talk to you all. Another study was done with where we are today when it comes to our children and obesity. The young ones, meaning their ages 2 through 4. They did a study on that, and these children were children that were involved in the WIC program, the supplemental program they use for nutrition for women and children. And the CDC did a study, and they found that as of 2018, the prevalence of obesity at that time, watch this, young children who were Hispanic, 17.2% were obese, ages 2 through 4. American Indian Alaska Native was 18.8%. That's almost 19%. That's the highest. And I couldn't believe we were low. But then among those who were non-Hispanic white, that was 12.4. And then non-Hispanic black, which is us, we were 11.8.
Wow.
And the lowest one was the Asian or Pacific Islander at 10.4. So in this respect, we're not really that high with those 2 through 4s. But when you come over to the adults, it's a different animal. So what we're going to do now is go into a discussion with our guests. All right. So we're going to just, like I said, lay our cards on the table. Okay. We're going to be honest. I mean, don't have any shame in your game today because I'm trying to help somebody here. Mm-hmm. And I know you all are too, because we have to get a handle on obesity. If we don't get a handle on it, they actually are calling it a obesity pandemic. Right. It's a pandemic. So let's start with Davita. Mm-hmm. Okay. So what is your why on why you decided to work on your issue with weight?
Well, it's been a long journey, I have to tell you, and I'm still journeying through. I'm not finished. Long story short, probably about 20 years, I've been working with my physician, my primary care physician, who has a weight loss program within her practice. I've gone through that program, seen the nutritionist, been on weight loss medications, all sorts of things. It worked for a short period of time for me. But the thing was, I never really changed the way I thought about food and my relationship, if you will, with food.
Okay.
And so that's why it's been such a long journey. When I was younger, I was thin. I really didn't have any problems. I worked out all the time. I taught aerobics. It was great. You know, I could wear 4.
Right.
And as tall as I am, that
Isn't
was
that
a huge
something?
deal.
I'm jealous.
But
Right.
that was so long ago.
Yeah.
But anyway, so late last year, I decided I have had enough. I had gone to a couple of different meetings or class sessions
Yes.
or what have you regarding weight loss surgery over the years. But I decided at those times that it wasn't for me yet. But late last year, I said, I have done everything I can think of. I've been on any of the weight loss programs that you see advertised on television.
Right.
Like I said, I've been through it with my doctor. And I said, you know, I'm getting older. I'm 55, and it's not going to get any easier.
So your why was you're getting older.
Exactly.
That was your why.
And I had to do something about it.
Absolutely. And that makes sense. So Amber, let's go to you, dear. What was your why for the reason why you decided to, and you're young, which is a good thing.
Yes.
That's a good thing that you made the decision at your age to consciously make a change. What was your why?
I got tired of the yo-yo. Like for me,
Yes.
I'm the opposite of you. I've never been small. As a child, I was a little bit on the chunkier side. In high school is when the yo-yo started going back and forth. I've always been very active. I've always danced.
Yeah.
So it's never like I was a couch potato that never did anything. I always did everything at the weight that I was. And I never made excuses for it. I just did it because I wanted to do it.
Yes.
But for a while, the yo-yo, it was just, I would be this size one day and then I would blow up. And then the next couple of years and it just kept going back and forth. And for me, it had to get to the point where I realized for me, it wasn't a physical thing. It was a mental and emotional thing.
Absolutely.
I had to really begin to deal with the emotional things that kept me from releasing what it is I needed to release, which led to the weight gain ultimately.
That's great. So your why was the yo-yo effect.
Yes.
All right, that's great. And Mr. Marty,
Yes, ma'am.
can you help us understand? You're a man.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's any different with men than women, but I know you recently started doing some things. What was your why for doing that? And then if you need to go backwards just a little bit health-wise, can you share that with us?
Yeah, my why became a real big issue because I was kind of forced into it. In 2018, I felt my heart beating in my chest. It was a really weird feeling. And I came to work that day and I was like, what is going on? You know, your heart beats, but you never feel your
Right,
heart.
absolutely.
I felt my heart beating and I was like, this is weird. So I was like, let me call the doctor. So I called and went over there and I got in the room and I was telling the nurse practitioner what was going on. I had told the ladies at the desk when I signed in and everything. When he came in, he was like, you what? He's like, get him a wheelchair. And they took me straight to the emergency room.
Right.
They didn't even let me walk. It was around
Right.
the corner. Well, I had to do a stress test the next morning. And after the results came out, the doctor said I had blockage.
Yeah.
And I had to have a stent put in.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that happened in 2018. And what it was I really wasn't paying attention to how I was eating. I work a lot. You saw the resume you got here. This is only part of what I do.
Yes.
I mean, I was also a landlord. I own property,
Yes.
rehabbing, da.
Yeah.
So literally,
Yes.
I'm like working 7 days a week.
Yes.
Literally, and that's already unhealthy.
Right.
But in 2018, I was renovating a house I owned in the city, and I was just eating late at night, and I would go to McDonald's and I would eat a fish sandwich, thinking that's healthy because it's fish, but it's still fried.
Yes.
Right.
Bread.
And have
all that,
fries
and I'm
with it
eating
and
all of
pop.
this. I was getting 10,000 steps in because I'm working on this house,
Right.
and it was in Bronzeville, and it's 20 steps to the next level. So I'm like getting my steps in and working. but I wasn't working out like I normally
Right.
do, lifting weights and stuff. And then it just, it just wasn't healthy.
So your why was medically, and you were
medically-
forced into making the
Yep,
change. It
absolutely.
was mandatory.
Mandatory.
Mandatory,
yes,
and
ma'am.
that's important.
Yeah.
My story is, I was little when I was young. I was a little chunky. I wasn't big, but basically, I didn't have a problem with weight. My problem started when I moved to Wisconsin with the phone company, and I started eating different because we didn't have a lunchroom. So we ordered in. We had pizza, we had Chinese, we had Mexican. I can't eat food like that.
Right.
I can't. So I started picking up weight, and then I realized it was the sodium. So way back then, I had a problem with sodium, and I realized it. But I started getting weight, and I went up to like 200 pounds, and I never been at 200. So my why right now is I need to get past COVID. I'm serious, because right now this COVID is keeping me from being consistent. Now, I'm not saying that to say it is true. We'll talk about that a little bit more. I want to just go around. Yeah, so we all have a why. My why is I have to take care of myself. I have a heart condition. My heart condition is not like Marty's. I have a electrical signal issue. So I have to take care of myself, keep my weight down, keep the fat. The rule is low fat, low sugar, low salt. You do those three things and exercise, you should be in good shape. So we're going to go into our next question, which is, what steps have you taken? What did you do to move towards removing some of the weight that you were carrying? Okay, we start with you, Amber.
Well, for me, first and foremost, and this is probably going to sound completely crazy, is I had to love myself where I was.
Mm-hmm.
What it boils down to is, for at least for me, and I know a lot of people, when they realize and they sit down and realize it's the same thing, you can't expect yourself to change and expect yourself to make all these changes if you don't appreciate the person that you are
That's
right
right.
now.
I agree with
because
you.
that's the person that's going to be doing the work.
Yes.
It's not going to be the person that you're going to be later on. It's that person right now.
Yes.
Change can't be born from hating yourself. You have to love who you currently are.
Yes.
It's funny because you mentioned about COVID. For me, that's when my journey started.
Really?
I was running all over the place, running all over with everybody else's kids, serving in this ministry and that ministry, helping people in the house, doing everything for everybody else, but not addressing me.
Yes.
People would talk about they eat too much. I actually ate too little. I was not eating enough or not eating enough of the right things.
Right.
So my body was storing as opposed to taking on a whole bunch of extra weight. I was the opposite. But when it was forced to be just me, and it was just me in the house by myself, not married, no kids, I had nothing else to do but address me.
Yes.
And I joined a program that allowed me to be able to learn how to eat better, learn how to eat on a schedule, learn what to eat, what to drink, how to exercise. And then once I started dealing with that stuff, started dealing with the personal stuff I needed to let go of. That's when the weight started to come off. And I started to not only be aware of how to do better, but also what triggers me to not do better.
Absolutely. Your triggers.
Yes.
You have to be aware of your triggers. So thank you for that. And Nevada, what have you done to help you shake the weight off?
Well, as I said before, it's been a long journey, and I had done a number of different things. But the thing that has helped me the most is when I finally decided that I was going to have weight loss surgery.
Yes.
And what I did is I chose to have it's called the gastric sleeve, which is the bariatric surgery that removes 80% of your stomach out of your body. Like when they cut it and staple it off, they take it out.
Okay.
As opposed to the bypass, where they, bypass the small intestine and all, but everything is really left in the body. So it can be reversed.
Okay.
But I didn't need the window of reversal.
Right.
So I said, no, take that out and we'll keep going.
Okay.
So I have a 4-ounce pouch, basically.
Wow.
And so I cannot eat any more at a time than 3.5 ounces.
Wow.
And that's still hard for me because when I first came out of surgery, it was impossible to do anyway because you're swollen, you're sore, all of those kind of things. But then as time has gone by, because now that was April, so this is 4 months ago. So as time has gone by, I've seen some triggers. Yeah. And I've, said, oh my God, that's So I was denying that I was an emotional eater,
Yeah.
and that's all I ever was
And
an
you know-
emotional eater. So,
And that's important that
yeah.
you understand those triggers. I mean,
Yes,
if we
it
could
is.
just sit still and say, okay, and do you know, I'm being honest, I've never been a trigger eater. Never been a trigger eater. My whole issue has always been what I'm eating, especially sodium. I'm not a high salt person, but a little bit of sodium will bother me. So I have to be aware of that. But I'm not that person that'll, if something, I'm sad or if, something's bothering me, that's not me. Matter of fact, I'm the opposite.
well, if I'm happy, I'm eating too. So I'm an emotional eater for real. Sad, happy, upset, whatever.
But you've adjusted to the change to the amount of food that you are able to consume now.
That's that hold that I really needed the help with, the amount.
Yes.
But then also learning to eat what and when.
Yes.
And
That's it too.
Yes.
The win is
Yes.
important.
That is number one important.
Because I
Yes,
was
the
eating
win.
late a lot and, put that extra weight on. And so no more of that.
Your food choices are very important.
Absolutely.
Yes. So Marty, let's go to you. Let's talk about what changes have you instituted in your life to bring your weight down, and where you two ladies are still on this journey.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm I'm on this journey too. I'm not nowhere near where I need to be or want to be. I love food. It doesn't matter about the emotion. I hear all of this psychobabble, and I mean, for me, I can't. Food tastes good.
It does.
And I just
when I leave here.
and I'm just telling the truth,
Yeah.
Don't let Thanksgiving come around. I'm having some of everything. That's just
Right.
and I'm gonna do it 3 times. That's just the way I've always eaten.
Not 3
Right.
though.
Oh yeah. No, not anymore. I grew
Right.
up like
Praise
that.
the Lord
So you
for
have
that.
to realize when I grew up, I had the kind of people around me like my grandmother. She was they came out of depression.
Yes.
So whenever they fed you,
They
it was
fed
like
you good.
eat all your food.
Yes. Absolutely. You had to
Ooh,
clean
look
your
at
plate
that
off.
baby. He eats all his food. Have some more.
Right.
See, so I came from this environment where
Yeah.
you just eat it because you like food.
Yeah.
But just to show you, this is an old book,
Reversing
Heart Disease. And like I said, I had to have this stent put in, and I've been reading this, Dr. Dean Ornish, and a lot of what you're saying about the fat and sodium and all of that. I've never really ate a lot of salt or whatever, realized it was already in the food. I wasn't.
It was
someone
inherited in your
I
food.
didn't add it to my food
Yes.
or anything like that.
Yes.
But this one thing I did do, I was a serious carnivore.
Oh, you like meat.
See, meat. I'm a
Yeah,
meat
meat
eater.
is the issue.
If I didn't have meat, it wasn't a meal.
Yeah.
And I'm saying 3 times a day.
Yes.
So recently I've learned that I can actually eat food that's just vegetables.
Right.
Absolutely.
Isn't it
We
good?
have
Without
meatless
meat.
meats.
I love the
and
Can I talk about that for a minute?
So,
Meatless meals, I know a lot of people, I can't eat a meatless meal. Yes, you can.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
You can have a meatless meal with a carb, and you can do fish, because fish is what they call bioavailable. When you eat it, it's available to you. When you eat the red meat, I don't eat any red meat. I haven't eaten red meat in 20 some odd years, because red meat leads to inflation. Inflammation. Inflammation. And also, and even though you have the best cut of steak, I don't care if you cut the fat off the edges of that steak. Within the tissue is marble fat. It's
And they say
little
that's the
pieces.
better
It's
part.
saturated fat, and that's what causes the plaque to get hard in your arteries. So you got to eat foods that can get through your body and are available, and your body can use it immediately. That's what you need to focus on. So we're dealing with plant-based foods, more fish, lean cuts. Don't eat the skin on your chicken. I know that chicken tastes good with that
I've never been a skin on
I
meat
have.
person. It's
I
just,
have.
Even fried
I-
chicken?
I'm
baked
weird
chicken.
like that. I don't eat everybody's fried chicken. I've always been a really weird meat eater anyway. My issue is carbs. I'm a pasta, sugar cake person. That's me.
That'll get you too.
Yeah, that's me.
those carbs. I used to be a pasta person too.
Oh gosh, I still have.
I bet you I stopped when I saw my numbers. See, I've always been a numbers person. I've always, even though now you can go onto my chart or whatever online and see your results. I would ask the doctor, and he would say what the results were. Well, now that I know, I gotta change this, and that's what will trigger me to change when I saw my numbers. So for you and you two, you all still on your journey, which is excellent. definitely do plant-based foods, get those veggies. You can't eat much, but you can eat something.
Oh, sure.
Right.
So you just have to make sure you ingest the proper foods.
Absolutely.
I know he does snacks. He's a snack person here. He grabs the snacks.
But I don't eat a lot of unhealthy snacks like donuts, and I don't eat all that kind of stuff.
But you got to watch the sodium.
Yes.
Yeah, you got to watch. When you have heart disease, you have to watch your sodium and your fat intake, because those two things could lead, the sodium leads to high blood pressure, and then the fat can lead to more plaque. And that's in one spot. That's the blockage in one spot.
Right.
But once you have it in one spot, it can also start breeding in another spot, because that spot's okay. Now it's got a stent in it. It's going to go somewhere else. So if you don't change that diet, now you got an artery over here that has a blockage. You don't get blockage in your veins, only in your arteries.
Right.
So that is really critical, and it also helps you to avoid a heart attack. So thanks for sharing that information. So what we're going to talk about now is numbers. Yes.
Can I add
Yes.
one more thing
Yes.
that I have to do? And that's exercise. I think that's
Yes.
we can't avoid that because,
Right.
I do have a home gym and I work out. Whether people believe it or not, I do work out. I have a gym at home. And because, I've always believed in developing my muscle
Yes.
for my overall body strength as
Right.
well. Because as you get older, I've noticed a lot of people don't do that.
Yes.
And then they can't get up from the chair.
Absolutely.
Little things.
You are so
And
right.
So I've learned to force myself to 2 or 3 times a week at least hit that gym and lift weights, walk and run. I do both on the treadmill. So I think that's a critical thing that we can't
Right.
overlook.
And that's what I mentioned earlier about exercise. But
Right.
to your point, the American Heart Association recommends that you exercise at least 150 minutes a week.
Yeah.
In a 3-day period. If let's say you're doing it for an hour,
Yeah.
then you're good already.
Right.
But if you're not, you need to get in 150 minutes a week of cardio. Now you can do the weights, but weights are anaerobic. That means that you're not using the oxygen. When you do aerobic, you're using the exchange of oxygen. Believe it or not, that's how it builds that heart muscle. But that's how you lose weight, and you may not know this. Through that oxygen
that's how it
exchange,
leaves.
that's how you lose the weight.
you're burning
So
that
make
fat.
sure, even if you're a walker, walking is excellent. Walk. But when you're walking, speed up a little bit for a minute, come back down. Speed up, come back down. Don't just walk like slow. Some people can't. They can't help it. I get it. But if you can, do what's called HIIT, high intensity interval training. Go up and down with it. Yes, ma'am.
And if I could add something too, because I noticed you said something that you force yourself to do it. I always, try to recommend when people ask me, what did you do? Find something that you love to do. Because if you know you love walking and you can walk,
Oh, absolutely.
walk. If you love running, do that. If you love taking dance classes, do that. Do something that you know you're going to love, because then you'll commit to it.
Right.
And you'll want to do it, as opposed to, let me go lift these weights real quick.
I
Like,
think with
you're not gonna do it.
But I think with him, he's so busy, and then it's like, I got to make sure I do it. It's like you
Right.
got to put it in your schedule.
That's it.
And you got to be consistent with it. And the results speak for themselves, and let me say this. Not everybody that's a little chunky has bad numbers. I'm chunky and I got the best numbers in the world.
Well, and there are some thin people that have bad.
That's
And
it.
that's true.
You
So
talked
it's
about
not
stigma.
about
Yeah.
you look heavy and people are judging you because of that, but you don't want to see my numbers because all of them are perfect. So what I would say, definitely do your exercise. Definitely watch your numbers. We're going to talk about these numbers right quick. Your numbers should be for your blood pressure. And I know I always talk about this because we have to talk about, these are silent killers. These are things that become what they call metabolic syndrome, where a cluster of diseases occur that cause severe problems for you. And as we get older, as African Americans, there's a problem. So blood pressure should be under 120/80. Your cholesterol under 200. Your lipoprotein should be HDL over 60. LDL under 129. Your waistline, ladies, should be under 35.
Right.
Men under 40. Okay. Your glucose, of course, your fasting glucose under 100, and your A1C under 5.7. So anything over 5.7, you're pre-diabetic, and then if it's higher than that, you're diabetic. We need to get a handle on diabetes because that's a pandemic as well.
Yeah.
So today we did have the discussion. We talked about your journey, and your journey, and I talked a little bit about mine. So again, obesity is something that we can work on.
Yes.
We need to do that. So resources for healthcare and information that can be shared, you can go to the heart.org, which is American Heart Association, diabetes.org, which is the American Diabetes Association, American Stroke Association with stroke.org, and the Disease Center for Disease Control, which is cdc.org. Going forward in our future podcasts, we're going to have a part 2 to Choosing to Lose and Change the Narrative. We're going to do our kitchen series. I can't wait. And What's in Your Pantry, part 1 will include our first guest, Vanessa Mack, Mac Fit Chronicles. Myself and the crew, whoever that will be our second part 2 to What's in Your Pantry. We here at Victory, we believe in physical and spiritual well-being. So we don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. So this fall, as we did earlier this year, twice a year, we're going to do the Prevent Type 2 again. Okay. We also offer fitness class. You know, that was offered this twice already. We're going to do our third time for both of these. Walking Warriors, they're almost done at the end of September. So we do want everyone to be healthy, but you have to be involved. You have to take the steps necessary. You have to exercise, pick the right foods, get rid of those triggers. You know, find out what's making you have this issue and talk to your doctors, partner with your doctor. All right. So with that being said, the last thing I want to show you is a screening that Pastor always talks about, this health screening. This is a heart screening with Franciscan Alliance. They do it also at Advocate. And it's for screening of your heart to check for blockage. And it is excellent. I did it. I didn't want to do it. Let me tell you why. Because after Pastor came back with that 0 blockage, I'm like, I don't even want to do it. It took me a year and a half to do it because of him. Wow. Because he had 0. I was like, no, I don't have 0. And the reason I thought I didn't have 0 is because my doctor put in my chart that I had 50% blockage. And do you know I have no blockage in my heart at all?
Ooh.
So I always read your chart. And with that being said, we do have these flyers here at the church and the office. Take advantage of this because it really is good for you to know. Okay, so we thank each of you for joining us today. We thank our audience, our online audience. If you have any questions, please put it in the chat below in the comment section. I'll be able to respond to you. We thank you for joining us. This has been another Victory at the Table Talk with the Health and Wellness Ministry here at Victory. I thank my guest Amber. I thank Davita for joining us, and also Mr. Marty. Thank you so much. You all have been a joy to work with on this podcast. Be blessed and take care of yourselves. Be safe. God bless.
Come get your victory at the table. Let's talk. Let's talk. Come get your victory.